So the title of this is Badassery.
That's correct.
But you were, I have to say, I wrote a profile of you for Fortune magazine a few months ago. I learned that you were a badass long before Apple and Apple Music and iTunes. So you got your start at Spike Lee,
Yes.
with Spike Lee. Can you tell me, what did you take away from that experience of working with him?
So, well, a lot. You know, the interesting thing is when I moved to New York City, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And interestingly enough, I was in the panel before about, you know, talent and, you know, how you come about what you're doing. And the funny thing is that growing up, I went, you know, to public schools. I grew up in Colorado Springs, Colorado. There wasn't a lot about advertising. You know, I also had immigrant parents who were like, you're going to be an engineer, a lawyer, or a doctor. Those are the only three options you have as a career.
I had parents
right.
like that, yeah.
And so when I moved to New York, my dad was like, okay, it's time for you to consider medical school, you know, and I had been pre-med and all. So I was just like, maybe I'm going to try a couple of things first, you know, just dabble a little bit. And I got a job at Spike Lee's advertising agency, Spike DDB, which was a part of DDB Needham and on Madison. And I loved it. It was so great. And it took me probably 2 years before I told my dad that like medical school was not happening.
How did he take the news?
Terribly. He still can't believe it. And literally after the Apple event, he called me. He was like, "Are you still thinking about medical school?" Are you serious? Like, I think I'm doing all right. Anyway.
That's also where you met Beyonce, right?
Yes.
And tell me about what you saw in her at that point, because you ended up later on doing a number of marketing deals with her, some of the first. What was it when you first met her that really, you know, obviously she's queen, right?
Yes, yes. Well, at the time, interestingly enough, you know, she was just leaving Destiny's Child or thinking about her solo career. This was, gosh, I think it was 2003, probably. Or thereabouts. Anyway, and you know, it's interesting because now, of course, we say, well, she's the queen, you know? But at the time, I think you think about people who break out of, you know, girl groups or any group, and the propensity for success is probably very low. And so there was some doubt whether or not, you know, she could stand on her own as a solo artist. But at the time, you know, there was also a lot happening in culture for, you know, people who were moving in between sort of their culture, right? And so whether you were a singer and you wanted to try acting, or you're an actor or wanted to try hip hop, I don't know, sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. Lots of athletes have tried it. In any case, at the time, Pepsi was a client of Spike and wanted to figure out how to get closer to a pop culture moment. And at the time, MTV had launched a show called The Hip Opera. And it starred like, you know, Mekhi Phifer and some others. I don't know if anybody, God, you know, it's a long time ago. Anyway, but it was interesting because the main character was Carmen, who, you know, singing and acting and doing all that. It just seemed so perfect for her to be in that role, you know, because obviously a prolific singer could do that easily. And so why not put her in a role that could, you know, really bring that to life? So that's actually how we started working together. She did a commercial for Pepsi in which she starred as Carmen.
And then you ended up helping coordinate the deal with the Super Bowl, her first Super Bowl
that was
appearance.
the fifth one.
And that was the fifth deal with Beyonce.
Yeah, the fifth project we'd done together, and
was
that
there
was great.
pushback on that, or was that sort of by then she had had?
Well, no, she was firmly queen. There was a firm crown on her head. But again, I think, you know, you think back in history and things seem like so wonderful and perfect. But I think we also forget that, you know, a few weeks before the Super Bowl, she sang at President Obama's inauguration, where there was controversy about her using a backing track. And people were questioning whether or not she could sing, which was so crazy. Like, I was like, are you out of your mind? You know, of course you can sing. But in any case, it really started to throw a shadow over, you know, her Super Bowl performance and all of that. And what was most inspiring to me coming out of that experience was that, she, at the press event before the Super Bowl, she walked in, and usually the performer of the halftime show comes in and says a few words, etc. But she walked in and asked everyone to rise, and then sang the national anthem a cappella. And that was it. Everybody just shut up. And it was just such a great, inspiring moment, because you think about some of the knocks that we take. Even after you've been crowned queen. Many people are queens up in here. I know you are, or divas. And you have proven yourself again and again and again and again. And then you get knocked down by something. It is very easy, to sort of lay back and think, oh my God, woe is me. It's like, what more can I give? I've shown everyone what I can do. But it was really inspiring to me because, she certainly didn't do that. She came out and gave the performance of her life, and won an Emmy for her performance. It was great.
It's interesting that you bring that up, because things, you've had some struggle in your life. You lost your husband to cancer at a really, really young age. How did you overcome that time? And just describe where you were in your career then too.
Gosh, it's like this is when the emotion starts. I get all because I think it's still relatively fresh. He passed away 3 years ago, this coming December, and I was at Pepsi. I'd come off the high of Beyonce's Super Bowl performance. And there were just lots of wins, It's like one of those moments. Everything is going well, things are like popping everywhere. And I was on my way to CMAs, and before I left, I saw that he had some sort of lump on the side of his face, and I was like, go check that out. What is that? And like typical, he was like, it'll go away, But unfortunately, we found out that it was Burkitt's lymphoma, which is a rare cancer. And 6 months later, he was dead. And it was just,
And you had a 4-year-old too.
Yes, and we had a 4-year-old daughter, or who was 4 at the time. And for me, the moment, it was just confusing. It's like everything that you think about, what you plan for. I'm a perfectionist. I assume a lot of people in here probably are as well. You plan your life. You say, this is what I'm going to do at this age, this is what I'm going to do at this age, this is what I'm going to do here, or get this job, and this is the things I'm going to do. I'm going to get married, I'm going to have a baby, or the other way around, whatever you want to do. But you envision your life, and when something happens like that you did not plan for, that you cannot control, it can throw you off balance. And for me, certainly it did. I mean, it knocked me all the way off the axis. It was just, he passed away 4 days before his 44th birthday. And it was so confusing to me to think that we had this whole life planned and that those things weren't going to come to fruition. But, was the sense of need to do more, to continue. I make no apology for the fact that I love my work. I love what I do. I love going to work. I find a lot of energy in that. And I didn't want to stop doing that. So after his death, there wasn't a sense of trying to change everything about my life, but I just wanted to change more things. I wanted to take more risks because life truly is very short and we don't know.
And that's when you moved to LA.
I sure did.
You joined Beats, which then months later became acquired by Apple.
Yeah.
I'm going to open it up to questions in just a minute, but I want to talk a little bit about what you're doing at Apple. At the MPW Summit about a month ago, Angela Ahrendts came here and she talked a lot about how Apple is taking a much more active role in communities and local communities with their stores. As the head of global marketing for Apple Music and iTunes, how does that fit into your role?
Well, it's been tremendous, being at Apple. My experience there, because there's so much that, as you just, said, that was happening in my personal life when I joined and the transition into Apple. there was just a lot of, fire. I felt like I just had to do and do and do, right? So there's been a lot of pushing. And, the support of the women at Apple has been also tremendous. Angela, I'm a huge fan of her, personally anyway. It's like her
another badass.
Oh, yeah. Man. I mean, this lady, whoo! Yeah, she got some great jackets too, by the way. Anyway, I digress. Angela is transforming the way that retail operates. She's transforming it all. And as a partner in what we're doing on the software side of the business with entertainment, we want to create a sense of community by empowering what she's doing with the retail stores with what is also empowering our software. So bringing artists or authors or anyone who's creating in this entertainment space into that space so that our customers can better experience all of the facets of Apple, not just walk into a store to purchase hardware, but also to participate in our software.
So you just had the boss.
Yes, Bruce Springsteen. I mean, so he's an author. He wrote a book, Born to Run. Can go get it on iBooks. And so we held an event at the New York Soho store for him to be interviewed actually by Eddie Q, which was great to see the two of them because Eddie's a big fan. And so it was awesome because you get a chance to bring a creator into a space that they probably never get into and also talk about things that are different from what they usually do. So instead of talking about him as a musician, we talked about his life and his authorship, and it was great. It was awesome.
We have time for one question, and I want to make sure I open it up, and just in case anyone.
Hello, ladies.
Oh, there's a question right in the front here.
First of all, thank you for being here and sharing your story. You're amazing. So one question, you exude confidence. Is this something that...
What?
Yes. Shocker. Is this something that you built up over time, or have you always been this way?
Well, so there's a little bit of a joke. So I said I grew up in Colorado Springs, Colorado, right? The part I left out was that my parents actually moved us. I have 3 younger sisters to Colorado Springs, Colorado, right before my 13th birthday. And I was this height and about 70 pounds less. So I was like a tumbleweed. Like I would just, blow in the wind. But there was really a choice. There was a choice, to eat. Well, I couldn't hide, so there wasn't a choice to do that. Yeah. It's like literally impossible. Anyway. So the choice was, do you try to do what everybody else is doing? There was I couldn't be blonde. Like I can't do it. I couldn't be I couldn't be white. Like it's just not possible. Couldn't. Makeup doesn't do it. I'm telling you, I tried. It doesn't work. I just couldn't be anything else. And so it meant that I had to become, just all of everything that I have. And what a tremendous age to learn that lesson, I honestly, you could think of it as like the, most devastating thing that ever happened. Well, I did tell my parents that. I was like, this is the worst thing you could have ever done to me. But it ended up being, of course, in hindsight, probably the best thing. Because at 13, I learned, what it meant to walk into a room and not care when everybody else turned around and looked at you. So here I am.
We only have like 20 seconds left, so I just want a lightning round sort of question for you.
Yes.
What advice would you go back and give your 16 or 18-year-old self?
Ooh, girl, I hate that question. That's like the worst question ever. No. Gosh, I think the advice, or maybe it's more of like the thought, which is that I think we spend so much time trying to achieve and trying to develop who we are and trying to come into ourselves. I think I would have told my 16-year-old self that, you just everything. You're it. You're it. You have it all inside of there. Don't look outside for it. Don't try to chase it. Don't even look around to try and see who else has it and try to emulate that. You got it, girl. That's a great way to end. Thank you both. Thanks.